Good afternoon. My name is Rene Aernoudts. I'd like to share you some of my ideas about lean transformation. Now, the title of this presentation suggests a lot. It suggests, or it might suggest, that you get an answer. We'll see. That you can design a lean transformation, which might be a bit of modern management in a way. And it might also suggest that transforming a large multinational would be quite different than from a smaller organization, which during the last couple of years I've seen quite some examples where it's not that case. So what I'd like to do is share some of those thoughts. First of all, this is might be quite similar to what you often see happening. Top management, not really interested in finding out what the problem is, rather wanting a solution. Doesn't matter if you're an external person or an internal staff person or even an operations director. So that is an issue. Top management, in my opinion, needs to learn to see and grasp the situation before you start into designing any effort, any activity related to a transformation. Preferably, you take someone, top management, and take them on a walk through a real live value stream. Now, this can be difficult. I spoke to some people in the audience this morning and they said, well, that's a nice idea, but it's quite difficult to get people doing this. I suggested to a CEO a couple of months ago to, if that was not possible, to just go into a supermarket and have a look at the supermarket, how this process works. Not just the front end, but also the back end. And I got called back by some of the staff people, said, well, this is a CEO, he just can't just go into a supermarket. This might signal a lot of things. It might signal that we're planning to take over the supermarket chain, or, by the way, we need a lot of people to go into the supermarket because he's a CEO, he needs protection. So there's at least 4 or 5 people, and I was like, my goodness, this is outside of my world. But anyway, preferably, and I'll stick to that one, is really go with a sensei to the place where the work actually takes place. Because Lean is an action learning experience. So before you go into transformation models, if the people on top don't understand what you're talking about, even a very simple thing like what's value added, what's non-value added necessary, and what's non-value added not necessary. If the top guy doesn't understand these 3 activities in a process, it's really difficult. Dave Brunn and I, were in an IT process. And for a certain change in the SAP system, it took them over 1,000 days to get it done. Now, this was a 1-week exercise. And on the Wednesday evening, Dave did a feedback exercise with the top guys, and they kept coming up with questions focusing on the value-added activities. So here's over 1,000 days on the flip chart, on a value stream, and they keep looking at the 60 days or something were the value-added activities. So that's why you need someone, a sensei, who can then say to them, listen, these are not the activities you're going to have to focus on. It's something else you have to look at. Second thing is that top management needs to guide the organization by setting up value stream projects. We typically like to call them experiments. I'll get back to you on the experience a bit later. And the second is to create examples. We often say to people, go elsewhere, go and see what other companies have done. But sometimes it's really difficult to understand what they've done because you don't see what happened in the past. And preferably, they like to show you beautiful presentations not the real thing. I wrote a short column complaining that I went on holiday in Italy, and I bought my kids some pizzas. Being in Italy and kids that like pizza, an obvious thing to do. And after a couple of bites, they said, "Dad, we don't want the pizza anymore." And I said, "Why?" "Well, we're not hungry." So I thought, let's do some checking myself. I took a bite of the pizza, and it was disgusting. So I spoke about this example in my column, in my newsletter, got a very upset answer from an operational director of a cheese company, because I complained. I said, you know, all supermarket or a lot of producers are now putting fake cheese on your pizza, so it's not real pizza. And you know why? Because they can save 3% of costs. So they add other stuff in your pizza to gain more money or to get the cost down instead of doing lean stuff. So I got a very upset reaction. Luckily, the guy still was willing to show me in his plant what they did. Now, for the first 2 hours, I got a presentation on how beautiful and how well they did on all the machines. OEE, everything was fine. And we then walked the floor, where I saw lots of cheese on the floor, seeing lots of different things going on. A very young guy in charge of their lean efforts saying, "Yeah, we do a lot of good stuff here. You see some value added activities. Here's our visual management." I said, "So who are you doing this visual management work with?" "Well, with employees." "So who's responsible for this?" "Well, employees do this work." I said, "But your name's on here. I don't see any names of employees." Well, a long example, but a short answer. I got some nice bags of cheese to take home on my pizza, but to be honest, I threw them away. I didn't feel that good about it. To tell you that if you go outside, really try to look at the real issue. But way better is to create your own examples in your own company. Third thing you need to do is lean management needs to prioritize. What are the real issues here? And a lot of companies just go into lean trying to do everything, while often it's only some simple things. Just a simple example of a company that works for Caterpillar, the engines, and they build these Caterpillar engines. They make them ready for boats, for ships, for all kinds of vessels. And the management steers in a way that they say every month we need to produce at least 20 million worth of 20 million engines. And that's once a month. So what do the guys do? At the last week of production, they see they're pretty much behind schedule. They get the orders from the first week and do them in the last week. So the typical thing you see is that this is the way the graph goes, and it just continues like this. So the only thing they changed, or the managing director changed, was saying, okay, I'll change this once a month to every day. So I say I have to make 1 million every day. That totally got rid of the whole internal struggle. So the performance gap you see, you really have to have a close look at how are we able to fill this gap, and preferably with some waste. Now, pitfalls for top management. Of course, there's pitfalls. The first one is obvious, not really spending time to learn about lean and about the real stuff that goes on the shop floor. And it's not so easy, because they are where they are because they're very good in modern management, not in lean management. And this is difficult. So I sometimes have some pretty tough discussions, and sometimes even get kicked out or politely asked to go out And I still have an excuse that I'm Dutch, so I can be blunt, but that's not accepted everywhere, especially not in the Netherlands. The second pitfall is relying on second or third hand information. So you get things and you think this can't be true, you know, but a lot of decisions are made anyway on this second or third hand information. Third thing is delegating the responsibility. So we're going to do a big lean thing, and let's hire someone from outside that knows about lean, and we're going to be great. That's going to be the solution for everything. So a person that doesn't know the business, doesn't know your questions, your problems, and they'll just come in and do the best they can. But a lot of the times, these people fail, and it's not their fault. So it's difficult, but it's an important pitfall. And the last one is expecting a blueprint approach. And this is what we run into daily. A blueprint approach, you just roll this out, A to B, this is a recipe. And in a lot of cases, there are some recipes available, but there's not one recipe for everything. So, to sum it up, Lean is not about a complex transformation model. It is about creating a pool for change instead of pushing it down. But to be honest, there are cases where you have to push. 2 years ago, we got a request from a company building turbo engines. And turbo engines are big machines for the oil and gas industry. And I don't know what the measures are in the UK, but in Europe it's 10 meters by 5 by 5 meters. So big machines. And we got a call in October 2006. And the MD said, we usually make about 35 of these machines, engineered to order, per year, 35. And now for the next year, all our potential orders became real, which means we have to produce 76. So that's more than double. I can tell you I pushed a lot. And that was necessary. So we achieved it. And now you might say, well, that's good. Good result. In February, I warned the guy. I said, you now have to work on stabilizing your work. And the operations director said, no, Rene, we're going to ramp it up to 100. Because we've done the 76, we even sold more, so we're not interested in stabilizing. And in May, they called me and said, we have a quality problem. We have to pay fines for this quality problem, over 3% of our revenue, or sorry, of our turnover. So, quite a lot. So, there's a risk in pushing it too much if a company doesn't really understand or doesn't make sure that they stabilize the results. Another cartoon, I like cartoons. As John said, they say more than words. And this is an issue. People are pretty scared to really go to the Gemba. Surprised at what they see and what they will learn. We were at the Schiphol airport in Amsterdam, trying to walk. Yeah, Dave, that's the example. We were trying to walk the supply chain of transferring bags from one airplane to another airplane. There's about 80 million bags going through this process per year. How many of these bags do you think get lost? What's the percentage here? Anyone? 15? No, it's only 5. 5 to 6. Well, they've done better. But we spoke to the manager, and we said, can we go to this place where they deal with these bags? And he said he was doing a bit. Oh, I don't know. I don't think it's valuable. And I said, well, let's do. And he said, well, to be honest, there's two things. I have to remember where it is. And second is you need a 24-hour before, you need to request permission to go there. I said, so how long has it been that you've went down there? And he said, well, do you really want to know? I said, yeah, well, it was 6 years. 6 years, and you're responsible for this process. Well, I'll not go into it too deep. I see that Dave still has some problems with the example. Preferably in the next phase, what you do after you looked at the top management, you create a lean steering committee or a lean council out of key function heads, and preferably also the people that you want to steer your value stream projects or experiments. Their role is to initiate these value stream projects, to coordinate them, review progress, and resolve conflicting agendas. Second, to carry the responsibility for developing your lean experts. And lean experts, I mean line people, not just staff people. And the last one is to review the results and spread the knowledge through workshops, networks, and communities of best practice, and preferably an intranet knowledge base, and not about 20,000 A3s in it, but really a knowledge base where people can go and see for themselves what other companies did or other sites. Now, these value stream project leaders are people that you make responsible for an end-to-end project over functions, not just one function, it's across the whole value stream. What you want them to do is to gain agreement on the right things to do, preferably done with an A3 plan. To lead the project implementation, which is sometimes difficult. Recently we were engaged in a project where where an IT guy became the value stream project leader, which I found very interesting to have an IT guy do this. And they did an end-to-end value stream with 25 potential issues. They then went on to create 25 A3s of every one of these 25 issues. How long did this take, you think? Anyone?
Project takes 18 months.
Oh, they only did it in 6-7 months, so they were quite good. And nothing happened, of course, because then they had quite a difficulty checking the data, because the data wasn't correct anymore, and they didn't know what to do. So what they do next is project implementation. Do it preferably the way you want the future business to be as well. So with visual management tools, like Pascal showed you. And get top management to resolve any obstacles, because this is often the case. And there are some tough things to do. And I'm not in favor of firing people, but resolving is an intense part of this project. You're really hitting into walls, especially since you don't want the authority to go away from the traditional functions. Second or third thing to do is develop your people. Developing people, preferably by running these experiments. These experiments can be quite easy. One of my colleagues did an experiment with this same company that works on Caterpillar engines. When we found out that there were 3 or 4 translations from first order to the floor, he took an order confirmation and walked straight to the floor, found the mechanic and said, "Are you able to make this engine with this order confirmation form that goes to our customer?" And he did it right on the spot, and within 2 hours the engine was ready. So it was quite a good experiment to see this is work. Instead of going into all kinds of details, analysis, complex diagrams, he just tried it out and it worked. That gave confidence for people to really go ahead and say, let's find out how we can improve this. Now, teach line managers to visually manage real-time progress and respond to problems quickly, so that you have a really stable, standard part of your process. and teach them how to develop capabilities. And the last one, most importantly, as John Shook also mentioned, asking questions. Now, what's a different lean transformation? Well, in our opinion, central staff improvement programs rolling out one best way across an organization might work in the first 3 months, but pretty soon go down because it's pretty difficult to sustain and keep them alive. Top management, therefore, has to really learn to see, manage to learn, and get the right things done. And yes, those are the titles of 3 books, and they weren't chosen by incident. Get line management to build knowledge through focused value stream experiments and by developing standardized work. So you can do an example, but then standardize the work. Another type of experiment we did was in a coil shop where they produced 12 coils per day and the demand were 40 coils. Now the guy in charge was 33 years in his position and he said, "René, you're stupid. I've been here 33 years, you were still in your diapers." I said, "Well, I was 7, I wasn't wearing any diapers anymore, but I get your message." And he said, "It's impossible." So we said, let's do an experiment. And an experiment is that we do a 2-hour workshop. And tomorrow we run 1 shift with our ideas and see how it works. So they went to 6 per shift, and they needed 40 in a day in 2 shifts. So we did 1 shift. We started at 6 in the morning, and at 12:30 we produced 21, which proven that it works. Plus, the people doing the work were pretty okay with it. They say now every 20 minutes we can have a 3-minute smoke with our colleagues. We didn't used to have that, so this is way better. Now, guess what? The guy in charge wasn't too pleased with this experiment because he felt pretty embarrassed. He said, "You know, I've been doing this 33 years, and now this is the tricky thing." I said, "Well, it's like when I cook at home. Yes, I sometimes cook at home when I'm home. If I have 20 people for dinner, I cook in a different way than I have just my own family to cook for. So it's normal that I don't do it in the same way. And this is the same here. You were never asked to produce 40 a day. This is a new type of question. We're limited in our capacity, so we have to just do it in a different way." That calmed him down for a bit. Not entirely, but for the first weeks it was okay. And the last one is sharing and improving what works through communities of practice. This is what we do as well in the Lean Institute. For instance, with one of my colleagues in February, we went down for a week to the Brazilian Institute. Not with a clear conscience of what we're going to find, but they showed us lots of experiments they'd done, and we got a great learning out of this. So this is what we do, but it's the same what you can do. Really go out. I don't know if it's allowed nowadays with traveling costs and the financial crisis, but if you can, go out and see your colleagues. So some lessons from lean transformations, and no, it's not on an A3. Take time to learn by doing. And take time does not mean you need 6 months. It could also be a day, but you really need to sit down, walk the value stream, and take time to learn. Second is, whenever we talk about experiments, I get quite allergic reactions from people. Why is that? I think because management seeks certainty, and experiments sound crazy, scientific, uncontrolled. Well, in fact, an experiment is a very well-controlled situation where lots of attention is there. So an experiment is not very different from a project. It only, preferably, doesn't last as long as a project. So it gives you a great opportunity to test things out. And therefore, you rather do 2 or 3 experiments in a month than go for the 25 interventions you think that are part of the project. For me, really important is you can come up with any transformation plan, but if top management isn't involved, it's doomed. It's not going to happen. I've not seen a lot of plans go well, a lot of transformations go well under different people, you know. So if top management isn't involved in one way or another, isn't touched, and not just rational, and you can have different things. We were in a sausage factory where they were doing lean for about 5 years, and they all read the books on flow, but they were not able to translate it into their own process. And it's, since this is a process where food is involved, you simply were not allowed to walk the whole stream of the process because of safety reasons, health regulations, and so on. So it was difficult. And there, what we did, the experiment, was that we translated their process, 30% of the value streams, in a Lego simulation. And not just a standard simulation, their own process simulated with Lego blocks. And that was the first time. So we played this simulation, 2 rounds, current state, and a future state with Kanbans and supermarkets. And this was the first time they really saw what lean could, or flow could do in their own process. What we did was we took 2 actual weeks, week 50 and 51. 51, so it was not just an average week, but there was also a week just before Christmas and a bonus and stuff like that. And it was a really helpful exercise. And just by doing this experiment, they were able to go back with their lead time from 36 to 6 hours. And they already spent 4 years down the line implementing all kinds of tools. So there's different ways you can do this. So you can do a Gemba walk, but it's not always easy. But what can you do? What can you create to let people, let top guys understand what the issues are and what the potential possibilities are? It has anything to do with lean. There are some elements in it, but if it's not really attached to your business problems, your gaps, it's just useful. You'll only create more waste by trying to do this. Keep the design of the lean transformation simple and lean. So complex transformation models, in my opinion, do not turn out the results you want. So use the lean principles, creating flow, see where real value is, what real value added means, instead of just jumping in, not understanding what the real issues are, and not understanding what solutions or what transformation model would fit this. And the last cartoon for you to take a look at. So think about it when you go on your journey. Thanks a lot.